G'day cocktail lovers, I hope you've been keeping well. I hope you're ready for another cocktail. This one is to celebrate Cherry Day. Yes, cherries have their own day. Everything has their own days. I love looking up these weird, what theme day is it today site because they have weird stuff. But Cherry Day is a lot more sensible and mainstream than a lot of the days, quite honestly. When it comes to cocktails, of course, there are a lot of cherry flavors that go into cocktails. So I'm going to come up with something good. I did a bit of searching and there was a recipe on the Difford's Guide website where I get a lot of my ideas from. And they called it a Tom and Cherry. And I love a pun, so I was sold at that point. A cherry drink with a pun in the title, let's make it now. This is a gin-based cocktail, and Simon Difford calls for an Old Tom style gin. If you're unfamiliar with the different types of gins around, an Old Tom is at the sweeter end of the spectrum, at least in a gin sense of the word. When we say a sweet gin, we don't mean like a liqueur, but it's sweeter than most of the other gins. So I thought of my selection of local gins I have, I'd go with this one. This is called Teddy and the Fox. It's from the Bellarine Peninsula, out past Melbourne, about an hour away from here. And it is a very light gin. It's got really nice citrus flavors, and they actually describe it as their gin they give to people who think they don't like gin. So this is a little bit sweeter than a lot of gins, very easy going. And we're going to start with, check the recipe, 30 mils, 1 ounce of gin. Now we get into some of the cherry elements of this drink, starting with a cherry liqueur or a cherry brandy. There's a lot of liqueurs and whatnot out there called cherry liqueur, cherry brandy. Cherry Heering is a very well-known one. This one is actually from a Croatian distiller, somehow ended up in an Australian bottle shop, relatively cheap. It's also really good. So I'm going to add 10 mils, 1/3 of an ounce of cherry liqueur. We are also going to add the same amount of maraschino liqueur, got one from the same maker in fact. And despite the fact this is clearly named after maraschino cherries, this does not taste so much like cherries. It's got a slightly more nutty flavour. It's very good, very popular in a lot of cocktails. And for this one, we are adding 10 mils, 1/3 of an ounce of maraschino liqueur. The recipe also calls for 10 mils of cherry juice. I don't have cherry juice as such. I'm going to be a little decadent. I'm going to put some of the syrup from this maraschino cherries in. So I assume he actually literally meant cherry juice, which is a lot lighter than this, called for 10 mils of it. Because this is going to be much richer than that, I'm just going to do half that, 5 mils, which is about a bar spoon. So I'm going to get a bar spoon of this cherry syrup and add that. There are some very fussy measurements for this cocktail on the Difford site. People who are familiar with the site will probably be familiar with how fiddly some of the measurements he describes in the site are, and sometimes I'm not sure how much difference it makes, but I'm going to follow his guide. He says 5 mils of grapefruit juice. I have some grapefruit juice I squeezed earlier. That's about a bar spoon again. Now this will be, because we've put a lot of sweet things in, not that grapefruit juice is without its sweetness, but the little bit of bitterness will probably help cut the overpowering sweetness. So I'm going to do a bar spoon, 5 mils of grapefruit juice. And for the really fiddly measurement, he calls for 2.5 mils, so just a splash of bitter red liqueur. Campari would be a common choice in this place. I think Campari is awful, far too bitter. I tend to use Aperol, or also this one. This is a French bitter red liqueur, Dolan Bitter de Chambray. So I'm going to just try and do a splash. I'm going to use my bar spoon to try and get maybe half a bar spoon or 2.5 mils of bitter liqueur. This is a stirred cocktail, so we add a goodly amount of ice to our stirring glass, and we're going to stir that for about 10 seconds. I'm going to strain this into a Nick and Nora, and it's got a rather fabulous deep red, suitable for Cherry Day, and a fairly predictable garnish. I think we'll do one of these maraschino cherries on a skewer. Stir that in a little bit more cherry, and let's give it a taste test, and let's not poke ourselves in the eye with our garnish. Wow, that is really good. I think those little touches of bitter elements, the grapefruit juice and the bitter liqueur were a good idea, because otherwise this probably would be a bit too sweet. I mean, hell, if you really like it sweet, don't put those in. Put a bit more of the maraschino in, because it's probably the least sweet. Or put a bit more gin in, actually. I think a bit more gin would not go astray in this, but this is pretty good. Suitable tribute for World Cherry Day, so get amongst it, I say. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you liked the video. I hope you come back for some more. So if you're not already subscribed, it'd be great if you did subscribe. Hit the little notification bell when you subscribe. Then you get notifications. I had a sip of this and I can't make words. I'm not sure if the two are related. But yeah, I hope to see you again soon. Let me know if you get annoyed when I say maraschino instead of maraschino. I say the pronunciation depends on where you went to school. Also, it pisses people off when I say maraschino. Rather childishly, I do it for fun. But until I see you, please take care of yourself. Take care of people around you. And until I see you again, cheers.